Hello and welcome to Roportaj with Danish bin Nabi. I am back with another regional topic, that's the Afghan peace process, which is currently going on in Doha, Qatar. I shall discuss this topic with the Senior Policy Analyst at the Ministry of Finance, Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, Mr. Abdul Jalal. Mr. Jalal, greetings. Mr. Jalal, are Afghan talks really Afghan-led and Afghan-owned?
I don't think so because the talk have been started between the American and the Taliban. The American tasked Mr. Khalilzad to lead the process, and after almost 2 years, in March 2020, finally they enter into a deal that opened a door for intra-Afghan dialogue. According to the deal, the American will leave the country in 14 months, and by May 2021, no American will be based in Afghanistan for military operations. According to this deal, more than 5,000 Taliban war prisoners, including criminal drug mafia and foreign terrorists, were released, which were involved in serious crimes and killing of hundreds and thousands of Afghan people. The process was completely against the norm and standard of a peace deal that not only helped the peace process in bringing a ceasefire into the country, and with the deal, the violence is more increased and reached its peak point. So it's not like a Afghan-led process totally. It's led by the American and their partners.
So, Afghanistan is known as the graveyard of empires. Why did it take Americans 20 years to understand that the dialogue is the only way forward?
Well, it's a very interesting question. I think Afghanistan is the graveyard of their own people. I born in the war and rise in the war. We lost 4 million people in this bloody war. Around 10 million more are internally displaced or migrated to other countries. Hundred and thousand more are become widowed, and many more become disabled. Our basic infrastructure, our institution, our educational and health facility are destroyed. Our economy is just ruined. We become our poorest nation in the world. Afghanistan is the graveyard of their own people. There is nothing has happened to US or Russia, Pakistan, or any other country. Whatever is happened, just a massive destruction that only happened to Afghanistan and to our people. Coming to the other point, the US has understood that further supporting a corrupt government is not part of the solution. In many combat missions, it has been found that military officials, especially police, are involved in selling out weapons to Taliban, and it's just very shameful. Therefore, political instability in the country for gaining power by Dr. Abdullah and Dr. Ashraf Ghani is a wrong discourse of power. Politics has been played by the government that takes American to rethink and go for a dialogue with the Taliban and for a power sharing option with the Taliban. Let's rate how everything lost.
Mr. Jalal, Soviets invaded in 1979 and left without any peace process. Americans did the same in 2001, but they are talking of a peace process. How different are Americans than the Russians?
Very interesting question. I think difference is existing when it's come to the Soviet involvement. The Soviet Union was one side, and the world was on the other side. The Soviet Union did not listen to the UN resolutions on Afghanistan and always listened to the Afghan communist regime, who came through a bloodshed cop, and there was little support, civilian support for the communist regime in the country, as well as international support for the communist regime. In current scenario, 130 countries supporting the Afghan peace process. United Nations also backed the Afghan peace process. the Organization of Islamic Countries, OIC, in the Arab nation, including the Saudi Arabia and Qatar helping the peace process. So the ongoing conflicts and war come into in Afghanistan is the result of the support of these international organizations in these international communities. These struggles might have positive effect on bringing peace into the region. However, obstacles still exist. Is the role of Pakistan is not clear, playing a dual standard role. The role of Russia are also very complicated because both nations have a history of hostility on different issues. The hostility of American and Russian still exists at present. The US backed Ukraine against Russia on Crimea and anti-Bashar al-Assad forces. So these have confronted both the American and the Russian in Afghan issue, and it might have a negative impact. There's also a diverse intention have made it complicated that whether the Russia will support the US to bring peace or not, where Russia have already started relation with Taliban group and invited them to Moscow for a long-lasting peace in Afghanistan and for a future role in the country. So that means the Russians supporting the Taliban as well for their own benefits, for their own interest. And it may complicated the peace process, the peace dialogue, that how it work or will not work. But there is a chance that it will work for some reason because Afghans are more thirsty for peace and they want peace in the future. So let's see how it works.
You talked about Pakistan and Russians being the two main players in the peace process. We will come to Pakistan later. Talk a bit about Russians, how Russians are coping up with Taliban now.
Well, the scenario of Russian is really concerned because the Russian want in kind of involvement in Afghanistan. The Russian are more concerned about their boundaries, about the ISIS, about other insurgent groups, about the drug mafia in smuggling of opiums to their countries. So they want someone to work with them in the future and back these obstacles in these challenges in the future. So they really want to someone to have a good relation, either it be Taliban or be maybe the Afghan government. So they're really involved, and but there is always a hostility between the Russian and the American on many occasions, on many issues, especially the issue of Ukraine, which has happened in 2014, and it has a direct impact on the Afghan peace process as well as in Syria, which confronting both the American and the Russian. So it is a kind of obstacle and challenges for the Afghan peace process.
There have been also reports that Moscow is helping Taliban monetarily in killing Americans. How true are these assertions?
Well, there is a report, but it's a kind of paradox and contradictory report. The Russian intelligence unit secretly offered bounties to Taliban for killing American troops in Kunduz province, but this was denied by both the Russian and the Taliban. But generally, it has been observed in the war that everything is related in war: killing, abuse, violation of human rights, and everything. You know that in the Afghan war, what American did with the Russian. Now, the Russian will never give up to do the same with the American, and it has already been repeated in Vietnam War. So the Russian will never give up to do the same with the American. And but in all cases, who are suffering? That's we. The Afghan are suffering. Our people dies. We are dying. Our state are collapsing. We need a cordial relation between the American in the Russian on Afghan dialogue, on Afghan peace process. And this is a really important for us. We want a long-lasting peace in the country.
The Taliban, since many months during this peace process, have been talking about implementing the Sharia law. How is the present political dispensation of Afghanistan with all this?
I think we are Muslim. 90% in the country are Muslim. And there is already a Muslim law in the country, which is derived from the Islamic sources, from Quran and from Sunnah. So we should not forget the 20 years success in the country. We have freedom of speech in the country. We have a free media in the country. We have an elected president. We have an elected parliament in the country. And of course, the founder of Afghanistan, Ahmad Shababa, was elected through people. He did not come through a fight into the power. So we are a people, we are Democrat people, and we want that everything come through a discussion, through a democratic process, not through so this is really important for us, and the 20 years success should not be this.
Mr. Jalal, tell us how much territory is presently under control of Taliban in Afghanistan?
Well, it's really controversial, really controversial in periodic news. No one can claim that how much territory is presently controlled by whom. In fact, a place captured by the Taliban, the next day it's being captured by the government forces. And the same, a government forces capture a place, the next day it's going to be captured by the Taliban. It's a kind of Tom and Jerry game playing between the two forces. So no one can say and no one can claim that how much the area they're being controlled. But one thing is very clear, that without the support of the American forces, the Afghan government cannot stay on its own for one day even.
But the major cities are under the Afghan government right now, right?
Of course, major cities controlled by the Afghan government, including the capital, including more than like a 300 district are controlled by the Afghan forces. And but it's also a fact that the Afghan government do not have control over the natural sources in remote areas, and it's illegally extract and smuggle to Pakistan. So it's a big challenge for the government how to finance their expenditure, because this is the only source for their budget, for their expenditure, which is being controlled by the Taliban. And this is something which is contributing into the war, because the Taliban in the anti-government element, in the insurgents, the insurgent is extracting these resources and smuggle them to other countries. And they gain money from these resources, which is directly or indirectly contributing into the war. So it's a really complicated.
There are also reports, some of the Taliban are saying, spokesperson of the Taliban are saying that they actually control 70% of Afghanistan.
Well, it's not been confirmed by the international media or the international. This is just a claim. This is just a news. Who did it? Confirmed it, but it's just like a claim. But of course, they have control some areas, in even many areas, in remote areas. In remote areas, people also supporting them for bringing peace into that location, for bringing security into the location, for providing justice to the location. So the local people support them in many ways. But when it comes to the government is kind of corrupt. The legal institution, the judiciary institution, they are asking for briberies, and it's something that diminishes the Afghan government's against the Taliban. So it is really true in some ways, but in general, we can say that the 70% claim could not be true.
Let's come to the US then. Do you think that Biden administration will continue with the peace process?
I think so, because the American is tired from this costly war in Afghanistan. That was being promised by the President Biden with their people, with their nation, that they will end the Afghan war. It was also promised by President Putin, the current president. So they do not want to spend more money on this war. They did not get anything from this war, and now this is a time that they end this war. So of course they want to end this war in its better time, that they look for a possible political solution and not war. Is war did not work at all in Afghanistan.
Mr. Jalal, this brings me to the last segment of my interview. Let's talk of the regional players, starting with Qatar first. What role has Qatar played in all this negotiating process?
Well, a role of facilitator and no more.
They have also brought all the factions of Afghanistan together.
That's true, because but behind all this is the international forces, the American. These are the American who tasked, I think, or I should say, talk to the Qatar to lead the process. But in back, there is American or the European nation or other nation who are dealing with the process. The Qatar are just a facilitator and no more than that, I think.
Coming to Pakistan, why are Afghans bitter of Pakistan administration, to say the least?
Well, the role of Pakistan is very critical in the Afghan peace process. Pakistan has always been a supplier of raw material for the war to burn. If Pakistan won, there will be peace in just 1 week. Taliban is backed by Pakistan, and she has a greater control over them. Pakistan can convince the Taliban for ceasefire and long-lasting peace in the country. And it's also in the interest of Pakistan for trade with Afghanistan and for trade with Central Asia using Afghanistan's route. So Pakistan can play better because they have full control over Taliban. You may know that.
Are they playing better now?
Sorry?
Are they playing better now in the present peace process?
Well, we cannot say that they're playing better now, but there is a pressure from the world community, especially from the American, to cooperate in this peace process. Otherwise, they will face consequences. So they're trying in some ways to do, because at present Pakistan situated in a very bad economic condition, and they need the support of American and the European. So there's a pressure from the international community to support the peace process.
Where does sorry, go ahead.
But we do not hope that they will do or not, because in many cases they just promise, they do something, but in reality or in action there is something different. They never did it in the past. But let's see how they will do now. But there is almost a greater pressure from the American, from the European countries, from the Arab world, and from all other countries to support the peace process. But let's see how it goes. And it's completely different from the past now.
My last question: where does India stand in all these things?
Well, the Indian involvement is always positive, because currently India is supporting many economic development projects in Afghanistan.
Can you name some of those projects?
They constructed the Salma Dam and Herat provinces. They're providing scholarship to Afghan students, to more than 1,000 scholarship to Afghan students. They built the building of the Afghan parliament. They also building some hospitals in Afghanistan. The Afghan government has always had a very cordial and good relation with the people of India and with the Indian government. So the role of India has always been very positive and very important for Afghanistan, and that's very amazing to me.
Mr. Jalal, pleasure talking to me. Thank you very much.